The young and the restless spoilers shock. Victoria Newman's world was suddenly turned upside down when the truth about her parentage was finally revealed. After years of believing Victor Newman was her biological father, she learned that the man who had been her father in every sense of the word was not her true biological parent. The revelation was shattering. It sent shockwaves through her entire identity, leaving her with more questions than answers. Who was her real father? Was he still alive? Was he even still in Genoa City? These questions, once buried in the recesses of her mind, were now impossible to ignore, and the pursuit of answers became an obsession. The truth that Victoria was not Victor's biological daughter had been a long-kept secret, hidden behind years of half-truths and unspoken pain. Nikki Newman, Victoria's mother, had known the truth for years, and now, with the revelation finally out in the open, the time had come for her to confess. Nikki had always carried this burden of secrecy, and now it was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. She had kept this truth from Victoria, in part, to protect her, but also out of a sense of guilt and shame that had lingered over her for years. The past, with all its hidden lies and half-truths, was finally catching up with her, and Nikki knew that she couldn't keep running from it. Victoria, shaken by the discovery, was desperate for answers. She needed to know who her biological father was, if he was still alive, and whether or not he was still in Genoa City. The truth about her origins was now a puzzle she was determined to solve. But as she demanded answers, she found herself facing not just the truth of her paternity, but also the emotional fallout of the relationships in her life. The revelation would change everything: her relationship with Victor, with Nikki, and with the very foundation of her family. Nikki, tearful and distraught, finally confronted Victoria, knowing that the time had come to tell her the truth. As she sat down with her daughter, her voice trembling, Nikki began to explain everything: how she had kept the secret, how Victor had known from the very beginning, and why she had never told Victoria the truth. She apologized for the pain and confusion she had caused, explaining that she had done it all to protect her and give her a sense of belonging within the Newman family. But Nikki's words were not enough to erase the hurt and betrayal that Victoria felt. Her world had been shattered, and no amount of explanation could make up for the years of lies. "Mom," Victoria said, her voice strained with emotion, "why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me with the truth? Who is my real father? Is he alive? Where is he?" The questions poured out of her, each one more painful than the last. Victoria's mind raced as she tried to process the enormity of the situation. The father she had known her whole life was not truly her father, and the man who had raised her was a stranger in many ways. Who was he, and what had been the real story behind her birth? Nikki, tears streaming down her face, finally admitted the painful truth. "I kept this from you because I didn't want to lose you, Victoria. I wanted you to have the life I never had, to be loved and cherished within the Newman family. But I was wrong. I should have told you sooner. I wanted you to be happy and feel like you belonged, and I thought that keeping this secret was the only way to protect you." Victoria's heart ached as she listened to her mother's words. She understood the motivations behind Nikki's decision, but the betrayal was deep. The very foundation of her identity had been based on a lie, and now she had to reconcile with that truth. The pain of discovering that the man who had been her father, her protector, was not her biological father was overwhelming. But even more devastating was the realization that her entire relationship with Victor had been built on a lie, and that Victor, the man she had looked up to and trusted, had known the truth all along. As Nikki's confession continued, Victoria's emotions began to spiral. She needed answers, and she needed them from Victor himself. What was the truth about her biological father? Was he someone important? Was he still around? But more than that, Victoria needed to know why Victor had kept this secret from her, why he had never been honest about it. Victor, when confronted by Victoria, remained stoic as always, his emotions carefully guarded. But there was an underlying tension in his eyes, a flicker of something deeper: guilt, regret, and perhaps even resentment. He had known for years, and yet he had never told Victoria the truth. In fact, Victor had actively chosen to keep it hidden, keeping the secret as his own personal burden. Victor's answer to Victoria's confrontation was blunt, though it came with a certain bitterness that was hard to miss. "I knew," he said flatly, his voice calm but filled with an edge of resentment. "I've known from the start. But I never told you because it wasn't necessary. You were my daughter in every way that mattered, Victoria. And I didn't want you to feel like you didn't belong, like you weren't a part of this family. I thought it was best to let you think you were my flesh and blood, to protect you from the truth." Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. "You knew? You knew all this time, and you chose to let me live in a lie? Why, Victor? Why did you do this to me?" Victor's gaze darkened as he spoke, his words heavy with emotion. "I didn't want to hurt you, Victoria. But it wasn't just about you. It was about the family, the business, the legacy. I couldn't let anything or anyone threaten that. You were mine, and that was enough. I chose to raise you as my own, and I didn't need to acknowledge the truth. Because in the end, it didn't matter who your biological father was. What mattered was that I made you into the woman you are today. I did that for you, not for me." The weight of Victor's words hung in the air, and Victoria was left grappling with the enormity of his confession. The truth she had always feared had been right in front of her, but now, hearing it from Victor himself, it didn't feel like a revelation, it felt like a betrayal. And it was a betrayal that she would have to process, one that would change everything she thought she knew about herself, her family, and her place in the Newman legacy. As Victoria stood there, struggling to come to terms with the truth, Nikki looked on, her heart breaking for her daughter. There was no easy way to undo the years of secrecy, no way to erase the pain that had been caused. But the road ahead, though uncertain, would be one Victoria would have to walk alone, with the weight of the truth resting heavily on her shoulders. Victoria Newman, ever the thoughtful and introspective character, is now on the brink of discovering her true parentage, and the excitement she feels at the thought of finally knowing who her biological father is overwhelming. However, this revelation carries with it not only the promise of a deeper understanding of herself but also a whirlwind of new challenges. As Victoria longs to uncover the mystery surrounding her real father, Nikki faces an agonizing decision: should she reveal the truth, or is it better left unsaid? Nikki has always carried the burden of her own past, and the weight of her secrets has defined much of her relationship with Victor. She knows that Victor is not a man who easily shares his vulnerabilities or past mistakes. His desire for control has often overshadowed the raw emotions that might otherwise have emerged. But now, with Victoria seeking answers and the truth threatening to unravel their family, Nikki finds herself torn. Revealing the truth would mean confronting painful memories, but it could also free Victoria from a lie that has shaped her entire life. Yet, Nikki knows that telling Victoria the truth could cause far more problems than it would solve. For one, the revelation could shatter any semblance of stability Victoria has in her relationship with Victor. Having already learned that Victor is not her biological father, Victoria may feel betrayed, but it's the potential fallout from this knowledge that Nikki fears. The mystery of Victoria's father could ignite old wounds between Victor and Jack Abbott, a long-standing rivalry that has never truly healed. Could Jack, the man who has been like a second father to Victoria, truly be her biological father? It's a theory that some fans have speculated, and it makes sense given the deep animosity between Victor and Jack. If Jack were indeed Victoria's biological father, it would explain much of Victor's distaste for Jack's close relationship with Nikki, and it would certainly add another layer of drama to their already complicated dynamic. But Nikki knows that revealing this truth would be an emotional minefield. Not only would it challenge Victoria's perception of herself and her family, but it would likely create an irreparable rift between Victor and Jack. If Jack were to find out that he was Victoria's father, it would likely open old wounds for both men, driving them further apart. Nikki is already walking a fine line, managing her relationship with Victor while trying to protect her family. Telling Victoria the truth might be more than she can bear. Would it bring healing or destroy everything? Nikki has always been a mother figure to Victoria, offering love and guidance when it was needed most. She's seen how strong and compassionate Victoria is, but she also knows that her daughter's nature is more gentle and accommodating than the fierce and calculating personalities that dominate their world, personalities like Adam's, whose cunning and ambition mirror much of Victor's own. Victoria is kind, easy to love, and not as driven by power struggles as Victor, and this can sometimes make her more vulnerable to the harsh realities of her family dynamics. She would rather seek peace than engage in the brutal battles that others in her family, like Adam, often fight. Given the complexity of the situation and the potential for even greater upheaval, Nikki finds herself paralyzed with doubt. While Victoria might feel a sense of relief and excitement at learning the truth about her father, it would also be an emotional burden that she may not be ready to bear. Is it better for Victoria to remain in the dark, at least for a little longer, and maintain the delicate balance of family peace that has been so carefully crafted? At the same time, Nikki's hesitations are not just about Victoria's well-being, they are about her own. Her relationship with Victor has been rocky for years, and bringing up the truth about Victoria's paternity could risk everything. Would Victor be able to forgive her if he knew she had kept such a massive secret? Would he even accept the truth, knowing that the deception was to protect his family and his legacy? Or would Victor's pride be so wounded that it would lead to more pain, more conflict, and perhaps even the end of their relationship altogether? Nikki's dilemma grows more complicated by the day. The stakes are incredibly high, and the truth, while liberating, could also tear apart everything she's tried to protect. As much as she wants to give Victoria the answers she's desperately seeking, she knows that the consequences of telling her might be irreversible. There's no turning back once the truth is revealed, and the fallout could be catastrophic. In the end, Nikki's decision about whether or not to reveal the truth to Victoria will likely come down to her desire to protect her daughter from the same tumultuous world she's always been part of. But as the tension between Victor and Jack continues to simmer, the possibility of Jack being Victoria's biological father adds another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation. The only question left is whether Nikki will choose to reveal the truth now or keep the secret hidden a little longer, for the sake of peace and stability, or if, perhaps, the truth will finally come to light in a way that no one expects, forcing them all to confront the painful realities of their past. Nikki is caught in a difficult and heart-wrenching position, and it's clear that, whatever decision she makes, it will have lasting consequences. As for Victoria, she may not be prepared for what she is about to learn. Whether the truth is one of healing or destruction remains to be seen.